Okay, this is the first lesson. It's a bit manic. You're going to hear bells and whistles and pings of all of your messages coming through on my phone and email as we go through the lesson. You'll probably have to try to ignore them. Right, what we're going to do in today's lesson is just look at some project skills. As I said before, you're going to have to do a project. Last year they had to do a 20-hour project. You won't be having a project that has any time limit, but your project will be kind of as difficult, I suppose, as they have to do. But you have to go through a list of steps. So you're going to have to design it first, then you have to write it, then you're going to have to test it, and finally refine it. So really, if we practice that with every small program that we write, when it comes to the exam and our project, we should be really familiar. To begin with, it's going to be really confusing. So please try to bear with me. We're trying to learn a lot. We're learning 2 proper languages with Python and PHP, although you don't need to do the PHP. Python will do. And we're trying to learn an exam language because your exam is going to be on paper, and they're going to have a language all of their own called the OCR reference language, and you have to be accurate with it. You can't make mistakes. It's as though you were on a computer, but you're on paper. So you're going to have to learn that as well. So it's going to be difficult. As well as that, you're going to have to learn something called flowcharting for design, and you're going to have to learn pseudocode, which is kind of English language spoken words, or how you write things down in just plain English. So that's 5 different languages just to do exactly the same thing. So I know it's going to be confusing. I'm teaching them all at the same time, because if I was to teach one after the other, I don't think we get through the course or do any theory. Plus, having to unlearn something is going to be rather difficult. So we're going to go through a project together. In today's lesson, really, you're only going to be writing a few things down in a word processor or on a piece of paper, so it won't be a major task for you. However, we're going to build on it as we go along. So here's my problem. We're going to try to solve a problem, and we're going to ask a user for their name, and we're going to display it with a suitable welcome message. That is our project. We're going to design it, we're going to write it, we're going to test it, and we're going to refine it, and we're going to look at it in different languages. In today's lesson, we will just learn about the design stage, and we will learn for the first time about flowcharts. So let's go on. This is from the specification, page 22, that I showed you yesterday, and we are on, I don't know whether you can see my cursor, but we're on this design stage here, and over the next few lessons we're going to go one after the other through the write, through the test, and through the refine. We're going to do it in Python, but I'm also going to give PHP versions as well if you feel brave and want to attempt that. So let's get on. This is the problem, and I'm going to be writing the problem out in a minute in Word. Now, I don't mind whether you do it in Word or whether you do it on paper. So here I've had a go at the problem. So I've got a title of the problem, and then I've rewritten the problem at the very top of the document. You will need to do the same for the problem I give you in the exercise. So this is ask a user for their name and display a suitable welcome message, which is exactly the same as the problem we saw on the first slide. So you can do it on paper. But what I really want you to do is, when you do the document in Word, I want you to put all the 4 phases in there. And don't forget, this is all worth marks. not your project that you do in class, but when you're sitting the exam, if you're looking at all of these stages, these are going to be worth marks, and they're probably worth more marks than getting a working program. How you design, how you test, how you refine is all worth marks. The writing is the coding. It's worth marks, but not everything. So you really need to concentrate on this. So we're going to go through this process. So I'm going to start by writing design. Let's do this in the document. Let's go for the document. So the first thing I need to do was write down the problem, which I've forgotten already. Ask a user for their name. So ask a user for their name and display, let's see what it said, a suitable welcome message. Display a suitable welcome message. Why are we writing down the problem again? Well, it's just so that when anybody looks at your work, and they might look at your work, I know it's not being marked, but they will check the centers to see if the work's been done properly. They can see that you are sort of designing and building the right program. So writing down the question is a really good thing to do. Then the next thing I'm going to do is what I did on the paper here. So you could do it on paper. Design. So I'm going to write down design. And in fact, I'm going to put a few spaces because I'm in a word processor. It really doesn't matter when I write things because I can just fill them out at any time. So I'm going to put write. So I'm going to put all the 4 headings in now, and you should do the same if you're in a word processor. Write, test, and refine. So this is what I'm asking you to do in the exercise for a different problem. So you'll have a different problem here, but all of these 4 things will be the same. And this is how we write a project. Now we could do that on paper, but paper is not very good at sort of working out how much space you need before you put the next heading. You might put the heading on one page and then write on another page and then test on another page and then refine on another page. That's up to you, but still, even when you're doing that, you might run out of space and it would be rather messy. So paper's not good, but we can make a good start, but you have to be careful with how you do it. So the first thing I'm going to do when I design any program is really think about how the user is going to see the computer screen and what they're going to be seeing on it. So this says ask the user for their name and display a suitable message. Well, this is how I think the computer screen will look. It'll have a message saying please enter your name, and then it will have the person typing their name, and I've got Eric here typing their name. And when he presses enter at this point, the computer will display hello Eric, which is a suitable welcome message. Could be better, but it's suitable for our purpose. So I'm going to do the same in the document. Now I put a border around this just to show you that it's a screen. We don't need to. I've put a couple of arrows here to show where the prompt is on the computer screen. That would be useful to do. So I'm going to repeat that in my design here. So an arrow and then please enter your name. Now remember, this is what I'm expecting to see on the computer screen if I ran my program. And then the user would type Eric and then they will press enter, and then the display would say hello Eric. Now that's the first part of my design. I've thought about how the screen will look, and that is going to give me some information that I need for my program. So one thing that it's going to give me, if we go back here, is what variables I could be using. So if you can think about the variables, have a thought now. I want to know the person's name. So I've got here the variables and I'm listing them. And I think it's going to use name. You could use anything for a variable. You could use bucket, you could use elephant, but a sensible one is the best kind of variable to use. Because we're asking for somebody's name, then I'm going to have name, and we're going to store Eric in that variable. So I'm going to put in my design section the heading variables with a colon, and I'm just going to type name. So I'm beginning to build up the design of my program. And the last thing, oops, it's automatically capitalized it, but I can reduce that again. And the last thing I'm looking at is what keywords do we think we're going to use in this program? Well, really, we're only going to look at getting something in. So we're going to be using some form of input, and we're going to be looking at words. And in Python 2.7, to input words, we need to use raw_input. We're also going to show a message on the screen, hello Eric. So we're going to need the print keyword. So these are my two keywords, raw_input and print. So if I go back to my document, and if I type keywords to help me, and then I can type raw_input, I'm going to have to take that capital R out, and what was the other one? Print. So they're the two keywords, the main keywords I can think of. Later on there might be a few more. You might want to make things bold for the headings. So I've made design bold, write bold, test bold, and refine bold. And you might want to make the variables and keywords that you're pointing out sort of highlighted. If you're doing it on paper, you might want to use different colors for it. But this is the start of my design, and we're getting marks because we know what the screen's going to look like. We know what variables we're going to use. We know what keywords are going to be in our program. Now, this one is probably pretty loose. We're not always going to be writing down all the keywords we use, and we'll see that as we go into harder problems. When it's a really easy problem, we can list the keywords, but it helps us think what we've got. Now, we're at a stage now where we have pretty much done all of the work I am expecting you to do in the lesson. So if you've got Word, you can write this out, but remember that the problem is going to be different, the variables will be different, and the keywords will probably be different. So you're going to have to think about those when you do the exercise. But we're going through this one nice and slowly. I don't want to confuse you too much. So that's as much as I want to cover now. So let's go back to the lesson. Another part, and I think this is on page 15 of the specification, is flowcharts. Now, you may be asked in the exam to produce a flowchart. Unlikely. However, you may be given a program as a flowchart and be expected to write that program. That's more likely to happen. So you need to know how to play around with flowcharts and what they do. Now, there is an online version which I'm going to take you to. You can make yourself a member, and I'll give you the link in Show My Homework. But I'm going to just type it into Google. It's called Lucid Charts. I'm not too sure if we've used this already. I'm going to go to their site, and you can sign up for free. It doesn't cost anything, but it's very limited. I think you can have about 4 documents. You can sign up for free, and if you choose the free version, it should let you register with Office 365. So if you sign in with Office 365, give it your school username and your password. There you go. It should give you an account that you can play with. And as you can see, I've been on here before. So the documents appear here. I'm going to click on open up a blank document, which you should do. And I'm going to write this program as a flowchart. Over on the left-hand side here, we've got all of the flowchart symbols. Now, for the exam, or for the course, there are only a few. There's this square box, which is called a process. There's this square box, or rectangle, sorry, with 2 lines down the side, which is a sub-program, which we'll get into a lot later. This is what we're going to be using today. It's called input and output. We've already seen that we need input, raw underscore input, and print. So we need these boxes. The decision box we're not going to use, not for a while, and we are going to use these terminals. That's the kind of start and end of our program. So let's go back over to Lucid Charts, blank document. So you can see we've got lots of different symbols here, and all I need you to do at the time being is just copy what I do. I don't want you to think, I don't want you to create one. If you can, just copy what I do. So I'm going to get something called a terminator, drag it out, and when I double click on it, it will allow me to change the words, and I'm going to have start, which is the start of my program. Then I'm going to drag out, they call it data on here. It really means input and output. And the first thing that I wanted to do in my program, if you kind of remember, let's go back to here, was I needed to input. I know it's got this, please enter your name, but we're waiting for the person to type in their name. So we're using some input here, and this is our print output. So going back over to this, I'm going to say, first thing I want to do is input. And what do I need to input? I'm pressing enter. I seem to have lost. There we go. Let's try again. Input space name. There's my variable. And then I need another one of these boxes. This time we've got some output. So I'm going to say that this is my output. And this is the symbol for input output. Don't use it for anything else. Only if there's any input or if there's any print statements, use these boxes. And we're going to output the name. Now, these boxes aren't very big at all. So really I would need to do here input, please enter your name. That's going to be too much for this box. So I've just used input and the variable name. And here I put output and the name, but we would also have a message. Now we could write that message on as a comment later if we needed to. But at the moment this will do. And finally, my program finishes once I've done that. So I can put a terminator. Terminator means the end. It's not that person who runs around shooting people. So there we go. There's my program. There's the design of my program. Now what I need to do is join these with lines which shows the way that my program is flowing. So it starts, and the first thing it does is input the name. Then it goes from input the name to output it. So please enter your name, print name, and once it's done that, it goes to the end of the program, and that's it. Now, if you were sort of using Word and you wanted this in your document as part of your design, you could take a screenshot. Now, I'm on a Mac, so it's kind of different, but you probably use the snipping tool. So I'm going to see if I can manage a screenshot. There we go. On the Mac, it's a little bit different. Okay, so I've taken a picture, and for me, I would have to put it in my design section, insert a picture, and I think that would have put it on my desktop. I can't seem to find the picture, and not to worry. I'll stick that in later. Where have we gone? I can't see the screenshot. But then again, this is a video, so it probably won't work at the moment. But I would just take a screenshot and paste it in here as part of my design. All I need you to do is log on, make yourself an account if you can, and just practice writing this out. Don't need to change things at all, just do this, just practice it. Don't use any other symbols, just these symbols will do. So that is your first introduction to flowcharts. Now some of you might be saying, I can't log on. It won't. I've only got a phone. It won't work. It doesn't really matter. If you want, okay, let me just get the last one. Don't know why that didn't work. You could do it on paper. It's just the same. So you draw an oval for start, and then you draw the parallelogram for input name. You draw a parallelogram for output name, and you draw another oval for end. So you've got the same sort of shape. It's okay with it being on paper. And again, you could probably take a photo of it or a screenshot and then insert it into your document. So that's the lesson. So what you're going to have to do in the exercise is create the document or a new document or on paper with the problem that I give you. You're going to have to think about how the display is going to look. You're going to have to think what variables you're going to need, and you're going to have to think what keywords you're going to be using. I do not need you to put a flowchart in there. That is good enough. If you are in Word, I would expect you to put the other headings in. If you're on paper and you're taking a picture of it, I would only expect you to do up to the keywords. Don't bother with the other headings. All you need to do is evidence that, take a photograph or send me the file or whatever you do. It could be on paper. Remember, we could be doing it like this. It's up to you. Send me the evidence of your work. That will be fine. And I will, in the next lesson, give you my answer to this problem. So have a go, see where you get. If you've got any problems, email me or send me a comment through Show My Homework. Everything seems to be working nicely. If you still need sort of laptops and you've got Wi-Fi at home, I am going to see Miss Roberts, see if she can supply some of the old laptops that Year 11 had. And if you haven't got Wi-Fi at home, there is what we call a dongle, which you can plug into your laptop, which will give you Wi-Fi that the school would pay for. It needs charging up. It's like pay-as-you-go phone. So if you haven't got Wi-Fi at home and you haven't got a computer, then maybe we can supply it. If you think that is good for you, just let me know and I'll try and organise it. Right. Next lesson, we will start looking a little bit more on design. We'll look at pseudocode. We will look at reference language, and then we'll start looking at actual language in Python and extension work in PHP. If you think you can already write these programs, give it a go. Don't be bashful. Really give it a go. Go to REPL and have a go in Python or even have a go in PHP. Okay, just have a go. See what happens. If you do write programs in Python, then this big green run button will do all the running. You write your program in the middle window here, and your answers will come out in the we call it a console actually, but Python tends to call it the shell. This is the console window. You'll see everything, or if you're inputting things, this is where you will input things. But the run button makes it work. Okay, best of luck.